Turning to the day's other headlines, and we start in Puerto Rico, which is spending New Year's Eve almost completely without power. A blackout began at dawn, and officials say it could take 2 days to get power fully restored. Puerto Ricans who could afford generators powered them up, as others stocked up on supplies. The private company that runs most of the electricity on the island says as many as 1.4 million of its customers have been affected. Luma Energy says the failure of an underground power line is likely to blame. Puerto Rico struggles with chronic power outages due to crumbling infrastructure, though widespread blackouts like this one are rare. A military appeals court ruled against Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin's attempts to throw out plea deals for 3 9/11 defendants being held at Guantanamo Bay. The ruling would once again allow Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and 2 others to plead guilty for their roles in the attacks that killed nearly 3,000 people. In exchange, they'd be spared the possibility of the death penalty. Secretary Austin had tried to nullify that deal, but the judge hearing the case decided he lacked standing to intervene. Separately, the Pentagon repatriated a Tunisian man held at Guantanamo since 2002 without being formally charged. Rida bin Saleh al-Yazidi's departure leaves 26 men at the facility, down from a peak of about 700. In Ukraine, Russia struck targets across the country overnight with a barrage of missiles and drones. In the capital, Kyiv, air raid sirens rang out and residents reported multiple explosions. Local officials say missile debris struck Kyiv's Darnitsky district. There have been no reports of casualties so far. Elsewhere, authorities in the northeastern Suma region reported strikes near the city of Shoshka. The mayor there says 12 residential buildings had been damaged, as well as 2 educational facilities. Turning to the Middle East, the U.S. military announced it had struck Houthi rebel targets in Yemen yesterday and today. U.S. Central Command says it used aircraft and Navy ships to target a Houthi command and control center, weapons production, and storage facilities. Smoke rose in the capital Sana'a following the attacks. The U.S. says the Houthis have used the facilities to strike warships and merchant vessels in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden. The group says it targets shipping in those areas because of the war in Gaza. Chinese President Xi Jinping used his New Year's Eve speech to vow no one can prevent reunification with Taiwan. China considers Taiwan its own territory, but Taiwan has never been governed by the Chinese Communist Party and has its own democratically elected government. Xi's comments are just the latest warning to what Beijing considers pro-independence forces both inside Taiwan and abroad.
The people on both sides of the Taiwan Strait are one family. No one can sever our family bonds, and no one can stop the historical trend of national reunification.
China's been carrying out near-daily military exercises in the waters and airspace around Taiwan, home to some 23 million people. Taiwanese officials say that's an effort to, quote, normalize Chinese military presence around the island. Police in New York announced the identity today of the woman who was burned to death on a New York subway car earlier this month. Authorities say the victim was a 57-year-old from New Jersey named Debrina Kowom. New York's mayor says that she spent a brief period in the city's homeless shelter system. The man accused of lighting her on fire has been indicted on murder and arson charges. Federal officials say the 33-year-old is from Guatemala and entered the United States illegally. In Los Angeles, federal aviation officials are investigating a near miss at LAX involving the Gonzaga men's basketball team.
Stop.
A live stream of the incident captured air traffic controllers ordering the team's jet to stop just as it was crossing a runway on Friday as a Delta flight was taking off. The plane came up short of the runway edge. No one was injured. According to the FAA, there were more than 1,100 near-miss incidents in the 12 months that ended in May of this year, some more dangerous than others. One of the longest-running power couple dramas in the history of Hollywood appears to be over. Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt have reached a divorce settlement. The pair filed a court document on Monday saying they've reached a written agreement on their marital and property rights, though few details have been made public. Jolie had filed for divorce in 2016, claiming Pitt had been abusive to her and their children during a private flight. A judge declared each of them single in 2019, but they still had to split assets and child custody. An attorney for Jolie says today she is exhausted but relieved at the outcome. And Wall Street ended 2024 with a bit of a whimper after roaring through much of the year. The Dow Jones Industrial Average was virtually flat, losing nearly 30 points. The Nasdaq dropped 175 points on the day. The S&P 500 also ended in negative territory. But it was a banner year for stocks. The S&P 500 posted back-to-back annual gains of more than 20% for the first time since the late 1990s. And analysts expect stocks to continue rising in the new year. Still to come on the NewsHour, the fatal beating of an inmate at a New York State prison sparks outrage. How artificial intelligence has changed our lives over this last year. And the high stakes of college football's expanded playoff.
This is the PBS NewsHour from the David M. Rubenstein Studio at WETA in Washington and in the West from the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism at Arizona State University.